Good morning, good evening, everyone, wherever the time zone you are in. Welcome to this webinar that we're going to talk about the Agentic AI. This is the new word that you're going to hear it again, Agentic and AI. Last 3 or 4 years, the buzzwords is increasing every 6 months or so. There's the new things coming up in beginning of 2024. We saw uh, AI agents is one of the keywords. Then the agentic architecture became an important part of it. And today we have Miku Jha, which is a very interesting career. She started in the VMware, but then she also worked in IBM, but also created several startups which been acquired by different companies. And today she is part of the Google organization in there, and part of the Alphabet. And she is driving the agentic AI technologies. So I'm very lucky to be able to hear agentic AI, how to harness it, what does it mean to our businesses, what does it mean technology-wise, and so it's going to be very good to be able to hear Miku's side and hear the agentic AI, where it's coming from and how it started, and what are the key differentiators today for that. So with that, I would like to bring Miku in to the webinar so she can start doing her presentation. Then we'll do a Q&A afterwards. I would like to thank Glorium Technologies for allowing to do this webinars with us. Hi, Miku, welcome.
Hi, everyone.
I
And
know you are traveling. Unfortunately, you are muted at the moment.
I don't think I'm muted. Can you guys hear me? Hello?
Okay. For some reason, I cannot hear it. Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Miku, now I can hear you. Now I can hear you. That's
Okay.
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 Miku, welcome, and I'm looking forward to your overview of the agentic AI and how to harness them. And I know you're traveling at the moment. You are in New York, but you are usually reside in the Bay Area. And looking forward to your speech.
Sure. Murad, team, I still don't see how I can share the screen. Not sure what happened here.
The moderator will help us in there.
Okay, I got it. One sec. Okay. Can everyone see my?
Yeah, we can see it very well.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. I'm really glad to be here with all of you this Friday morning for people who are celebrating Holi, Festival of Colors. So very happy Holi to everyone.
Oh, yeah.
So let's talk about all things agentic AI in this morning. And I just wanted to kind of start with something which is so fascinating in terms of where we are at in the technology landscape. So to start from the data, first thing is that based on all the analysis data, by 2028, over 33% of enterprise workflows will incorporate agentic flow in them or will incorporate AI agents one way or the other. And 15% of our daily decisions, those are going to be automated through agentic experiences. So when you think about that, there are going to be more agents than people because we're going to have billions of agents and each one of us is going to have more than one. And I want us to kind of process that, take a pause and process that little bit. And this shift is not just towards one single industry vertical or one single segment or one single functionality. This automation using the capabilities of agents is across every single industry vertical and every single function. The other thing is we are getting into what we are calling the term coined is agent economy. So think of marketplace for agents. You're going to have agents for hire. You're going to have agents which will have ratings. You're going to have agents which are able to publish their capabilities and services saying, hey, this is what I can do, this is what I cannot do. And that's how you're going to bring it in your orchestration. The last thing in the first topic that I want to leave you with is that just as when the mobile app, we finally got to the App Store and we got to powerful mobile first applications, it became a common norm to say there is an app for that. We are getting into the phase where we're going to say there is an agent for that, right? So let's have that as the keeps as we get into our session and dig deeper into this agents. So now, if I switch into the enterprise, like in the consumer space, we have interacted with different interfaces, search. All of those could be agents in some definition. But when you look at it from the enterprise perspective, um, there are two variants the way I like to think about it. One is the interactive agents, right? Interactive agents are the ones where you have conversational agents, we can say, which will assist us in getting the answer, doing the search, generating the content, act on behalf of the user, but you are interacting, you are conversing, and you immediately get the outcome, right? The background agents are new, evolving. We can also think of it as workflow agents, right? So they are working in the background. They have access to tools, they have access to enterprise systems, access to enterprise data. They can monitor the information, they can monitor the outlier scenarios, they can take decisions and then notify the human in the loop in terms of whether the system should take that action or not, and then also escalate it to the user when needed. So, in enterprise perspective, the way we are seeing things evolve is that essentially there are two aspects. One is to automate the workflows, and this could be traditional workflows. So we are not saying that the agentic AI is for new workflows, those would be there, but also for traditional workflows. The goal is to bring that level of automation. And then, of course, the other part of it, which is where every enterprise is starting with, is to improve the productivity in house, right? So, what kinds of use cases are we seeing evolve or surface up? Um, we can categorize it in two forms. One is think of it as horizontal functions or common functions, which are applicable no matter which enterprise, which vertical, which domain, which capability we are talking about. So things like extracting insights, doing research, summarizing the meeting, scheduling the meeting, writing the summary for certain content. Those I categorize it as horizontal capabilities which many of us are interacting with already in our daily workflows. But then you get into function specific capabilities where agents are evolving. So, for example, a very quick example I can give you is in marketing, you can have an end to end, fully functional agent operating as one single composite unit, which can improve the SEO for your website. Take another example. So you can have a campaign management agent. What it can do is that if you give it a goal that this is the campaign I want to run, this is my budget, it can operate all the way from taking sense of the historical campaigns which have been successful for you, processing that, generating the content, publishing it on the different channels, and doing the post campaign analytics for you. Right. So that's the extent to which you can have the automation when it comes to marketing campaigns. And some of these we are seeing in late stages of explorations or even in early stages of production deployment at this point. So in terms of two subsections where we are seeing these use cases evolve, or I would say three actually, and I would stack rank it in terms of first the support use cases. Second is everything related to software coding, and third is marketing. So if you ask me what are the three sub functions where we are seeing these agents kind of gain a lot of momentum and traction, those would be the three. So why are we so excited about the AI agents or this agentic era, and what are the pillars on which this is built or this is progressing? Um, so as you think about it, one thing which makes it really powerful is the fact that it can take autonomous actions or self correct and take those actions. Second is reasoning. Reasoning, in my mind, is the most kind of the heart of the system, the agentic system, because reasoning gets you to planning. Reasoning gets you to comprehending correctly what the user request and the context is. From there, you get to planning. And from planning, you get to identifying what tools you want to use to execute and accomplish the goal. So it's really important that when we think about and we will unpack it a little bit as we progress, but when you think about the agents, to think about what is the underlying foundation model that you're using and how capable it is in terms of reasoning and planning, in terms of understanding the context and all of that. The next is continuous learning, because these systems can learn from their environment and improve the performance over time. Now, I do want to call out that when we are thinking of agentic AI in the context of software and workflows, the question is, what is an environment, right? Um, so in this context, the the way I think about it is the environment is your use case. So for example, when we talked about a marketing an agent which can help us with automation of running a marketing campaign, the environment is that marketing campaign workflow, because I'm only going to use tools in that context. I'm not going to use tools, for example, which would be applicable in a gaming scenario, right? So it's important to understand what is an environment for your agent, because that kind of helps define what are the tools, what are the capabilities that would be there for the agent to be successful. The last part of this multi-agent collaboration, so this is very new in terms of at least seeing in production deployment. It's in early stages, but what I want to share here, based on all my discussions with enterprise customers and different teams, different industry leaders who are exploring this, is that there is one fundamental realization which I think is a keep for us from this slide, which is that when we think of workflow automation, um, especially in the context of the enterprise, uh, you're not going to have one agent which will give you that entire automation, right? So just like there's no paradigm that a single model rules it all, we have moved away from that. Similarly, in the context of even a single workflow, you're going to have multiple agents working together in some sort of a orchestrated synchronicity to get us to that automation. So, one workflow will still have n agents to get to that task or to get to that goal. I can push it a little bit further, given it's Friday and everybody's in a happy mood, which is that even when you think of multiple agents, they could be running in a context, in a configuration where these agents could expose or publish what the memory is, what the tools are, what the API is, what are the internal planning capabilities. So the internals of the agent can be shared. That is one way of getting the multi-agent collaboration going. But You're also going to get into scenarios where the internals of an agent cannot be shared. For example, the agent is operating behind a firewall, even if it's the same organization, or it has access to a certain data set, and because of the policy and the data governance issues, that agent cannot expose what APIs, or what are the tools it's using internally to process that data. So where I'm going with this is that a single workflow, multiple agents, but agents can or cannot expose the internals, and we have to figure out how does that interoperability actually work, to get to the automation. So how do we think about the anatomy of an AI agent? And just for kind of smiles, we still haven't come to a single unified definition of an agent, um, which is just fascinating, right? Because we walked through, we're going to have billions of agents. We walked through that more than 33% of enterprise workflows are going to be agentic. But what is an AI agent, or how do we define it? So I'm attempting here to get to that definition with a disclaimer that there's no single definition, um, because it is so rich in terms of how or what you call an agent. Uh, but in my mind, it's a software system. It's capable of autonomously performing tasks on behalf of a user or on behalf of another system by designing and dictating its own workflows and utilizing the tools that it has access to accomplish that task or overarching goal. Um, so that's the definition. I think which captures all the aspects of it. We can simplify it further, uh, but you can say that it's a system which processes its environment, learns from it, takes autonomous actions, and executes multiple steps towards accomplishing a goal. That's an AI agent. So, what are the core functions of it? One is reasoning. Reasoning is the heart of the agent, which is where it is powered by the underlying foundation models. Second is routing. So, when it understands what exactly is the goal or the task, once it interprets that, then it needs to figure out from the access to the tools that it has, which tool to use to get to that task. And third is actually taking action, right? So executing on that, invoking that API, invoking the call, or invoking the capability of another LLM. So what are the core components then which can accomplish these functions? So essentially, a router to decide which tool to go to. The memory, agents can have short-term memory as well as long-term memory, which is where you would store the context, which is where you would store the previous actions that were taken by the agent. And the skills, right? Skills is really important because just like when we look at people, to get to a certain project, every agent ideally should have one or more skill. If it has no skill, then there's very little that an agent can do. And a skill could be made up of multiple components. So for example, if you think about a sales agent, right? So it should be able to run SQL query to get information from your CRM database. It should be able to maybe give you a visual representation of the data, of the patterns that it has. So those are the skills. And in term to execute those skills, it will have the underlying building blocks, right? uh, One thing which is kind of I'm realizing, uh, is that, and it's also based on the literature which we are coming to, is that typically agents would require more powerful foundation models to be successful at the task or the goal. And why this is the case is because, think about it, if you're building a very simple basic Gen AI use case, let's say one task, and the overall accuracy for that is say 90%. Now when you extrapolate it to a agentic workflow which will have multiple such tasks, and the agent is capable of taking its own actions, and those paths are not determined, there could be multiple paths, then as the number of steps increase, the overall accuracy decreases, right? Because you have 90% for one and you have 10 steps. Which is why, again, I want to double click on the fact that it becomes very important to pay attention to what are the underlying foundation models which are being used by these agents, because that has an implication on what is the kind of success outcome or ROI that you can get from your agentic system. All right, so just to give you a very quick view of what a runtime looks like for an agent to plan, reason, and execute. So you have the LLM models, which we have touched on. That's where you get the reasoning, and that's where you get the planning. You have the tools. Now, tools could be APIs, functions, databases, any of it. But a tool could also be another agent, right? And the flip is also true, which means that the agent could be uh, kind of consumed as a tool, or a tool can be wrapped as an agent, depending on how the whole flow is orchestrated. And then you have actual execution. So you have the user query, then you have the which is serves as the input, and then you have the response, and this is the view of the runtime. So important takeaway from here is that all of this is kind of needs to be taken care of from the orchestration layer to actually accomplish the goal. All right, so that gets us to um, agent evaluation, right? So think about it. I want to kind of draw one contrast here to drive us home on this primer for AI agents. So let's say I go back to the same, the marketing campaign scenario. It's a job that I want to get done. Typically, I'm going to use a whole set of tools to do it, right? So I'm going to process, I'm going to go into my database, for example. I'm going to process what were the last 50 campaigns which were successful, extract patterns from it. I'm going to have a financial tool where I'm going to look at the budgeting and all of that. I might have a system to profile the demographic that I want to approach to. Then tools to actually generate the content, bring in all the creators and the creatives and the media, the assets, the video, and all of that. Finally, publish that particular campaign, and then do a post campaign analytics to figure out if my campaign was successful or not, right? How does it change if I bring the agentic AI into the equation? I'm going to describe that, hey, this is my budget, this is my demography where I want to reach out, and here is the regions where I want to get to, and I want 80% outreach from this campaign, right? That's what I'm going to tell an agent. And then the agent has to go, it has to plan, it has to decide which tool, how to use those tools and accomplish the goal, and then complete all those tasks and publish the success metric. So when you think about it, under the hood, these are still based on foundation models. These are still LLM based or LMM based, and are non-deterministic, right? That's one thing. And there are multiple paths of execution. So you would think about, did the agent even understand the request correctly? Did it get the context that what is the demography, what is the profile where I want to get to the campaign? Is it able to invoke the right tools? Is it able to get the right parameters? Is it able to make the right API call? And finally, is it able to use the right tone for the answer so that the user experience is not suboptimal, right? So when you think through this, you can see why we have to start thinking about not just building the agents, not just orchestrating the agents, but also start paying equal attention to evaluating every single step in this agent as we get it ready for production deployment, right? So agent evaluation is in very early stages. Either the existing frameworks are going to expand, or we are going to see new frameworks to evaluate these. But just like when you think about a Gen AI use cases, one of my best practices guidelines to the decision makers, to enterprises who are thinking of taking the Gen AI use cases into production, is that have the evaluation on day zero of thinking about the use cases, right? Uh, Similarly, when you're thinking of the agents, have it as a part of your blueprint on day zero, as opposed to just before you want to take it into the production deployment, because those decisions are going to play a crucial role in terms of, are you able to get the ROI and the metric from these systems. Okay, so we have pretty much captured a primer um, of what is the landscape, how is it changing, what is the definition of an agent, at least we attempted to do it, what does the runtime look like, and what are the core drivers, and what is the anatomy of an agent, right? So that's like the, let's say this is the first phase of our this session. Now I want to kind of switch gear into more so into the crux of the enterprise, right? So today, when you think about me or you as a user in our workflow, in our enterprise scenario, we are essentially spending a lot of time starting from search and then trying to make sense of all the different applications which are there in part of a, as a part of a single workflow. So from statistics and from data, 89% of employees search at least across up to 6 different sources of information. And these are all in different silos, having different access controls, having different access to data sets. And we still have to solve the problem of something where the experience is unified. What I mean is that having a very simple, seamless way to access information, to have access to the agentic workflows on top of the entire enterprise data and systems. Wouldn't that be so powerful for us to not just drive the agentic efficiency, but also to kind of improve the employee productivity? So that's where the Google agent space, which is in preview right now, becomes truly a fundamental and differentiated capability. So think of it as something which unlocks the enterprise expertise for the workforce. And you have the best of Google to power that, starting all the way from Gemini 2.0 family of foundation models to a one stop destination for enterprise agents, to bringing the best of Google when it comes to innovation. So, for example, I hope that many of you have played with Notebook LM in the consumer space or are using it as much as I do. Nothing gets done for me without Notebook LM today, even in my personal environment. And you can have access to the hardened version of Notebook LM for enterprises, which is in agent space for you to access, right? So the one important part of agent space is also that when it comes to agents, it's a centralized landing zone or a centralized destination. Whether you are thinking about the agents built by Google itself, such as a research agent, or agents that you build in your own organization, because we are offering, or we have all the capabilities starting from no code to the entire spectrum to build your own agents. Or you can have agents which are curated from either your own third party providers or from other systems and sources. And all of this would be on top of the enterprise grade security, privacy, and compliance coming from Google Cloud perspective. So if you bring this together, so it essentially looks something like this, right? That your agent space is a central hub for all your agentic experiences, giving you unified search, giving you a unified orchestration, a unified landing zone for all the different agents powered on top of the enterprise platform. To double click a little bit into the stack, this is essentially Google's Vertex AI platform, which is a single unified platform for all your predictive, generative, and agentic needs. Starting from the hypercomputer layer, which is where you have the choice of using the TPUs or GPUs for your inference and training and serving and all of that. Then you have the models. You also have Vertex AI layer on top of it, which is where you have model gardens. So you can choose from more than 200 models based on what is the agentic experience and the outcome and the price performance trade offs that you want to factor in. And you have Agent Builder as part of Vertex AI, which is where you can build your own agents across the entire spectrum of starting from zero code to building to getting into a full-fledged version to build the agents, right? And then you have Google Agent Space that I just touched on, which is essentially a SaaS application, a packaged application uh, uh, yeah, on top of the existing Vertex AI stack. You also have Google's own AI agents, which is again at the application layer. So I just wanted to kind of have this very high level picture of where do the models, the agent builder, and the Google agent space actually fit in top of the Vertex AI stack. Right. So now getting into what are the examples of agents that that we are seeing some of our customers have built. Just want to give you a quick preview. So in financial services, there is a broker review agent, a workflow agent. So essentially, imagine a rep who needs to prepare a review for the client, and the agent will be able to manage the cycle of creating the review materials, tracking the follow ups, and then updating the metrics after the fact. Staffing agents. So think about all the consulting organizations out there, and there is a very high velocity in how they map their team to a project. So now you can have a staffing agent which can understand the project requirements. What are the skills needed? Where is the location? Where do you need to place the consultants? What is the timeline? What is the budget? Taking all of that into consideration, it can then book an engagement team, structure the entire engagement team to fill the requirement of the client, have those recommendations, and as a last step, kind of share it with the HR person to go through the final onboarding. So, this is in many different stages of production deployment. In life sciences, this is a this is the one which I get very fascinated about. So, which is essentially designing lab experiments. So, you can learn from all the literature, external, the internal data. And remember, I shared that when you're thinking of a marketing campaign, you can actually process all of that campaign data to get a pattern on what succeeded and what did not historically, right? You can do something very similar. So it has been factored in this one, in the lab experiments as well. That what were the prior successes, what were the things which led to a successful experimentation, and kind of factor that uh, into designing the right experiment. And then remember, we shared that the agent can learn from its environment. That becomes really powerful for something like this scenario or this use case of effective lab experiments. So again, there are numerous examples. I just wanted to kind of give you one for top three industry verticals. But there is a lot. As I shared, every system, every subsystem, you can start thinking of agentic workflows. So now we covered quite a bit. I want to get back to the fundamentals in this last half. So whether you are thinking of a Gen AI use case, or whether you are thinking of agentic workflows, or whether you are thinking of a self-contained agent that you can drag and drop in your workflow orchestration, these are the four kind of success factors from an enterprise lens perspective. Okay. First thing is that you have to still think about it from an integrated platform perspective, which offers you the choice and the optionality at every layer of the stack. Why is the choice and optionality so important? Because whether we are taking Gen AI use case into production or agentic experiences into production, as an ecosystem, we are early. So we need to know that we have the choice when it comes to choosing the model, when it comes to choosing the hypercomputer layer, when it comes to choosing the frameworks, when it comes to choosing the packaged application. So, future proofing is really important, and that is based on the optionality and the choice. The other part of this is that, let's say we made the decision on the platform, and having an integrated platform which serves for your predictive, your generative, and agentic needs is a very powerful positioning, which we have from Google's Vertex AI perspective. But think about it, for any enterprise, you're going to have a combination of these three. You're going to have traditional workflows, which can benefit from your predictive AI, and which is already there in every enterprise. Then you have generative AI flows, and now we are talking about agentic flows, right? So it becomes really important to think about what is the platform choice you're making, and does it have the optionality at every single layer of the stack. Second is that, let's say we made the choice of the platform, we made the choice of the model, but where does the differentiation come from? The differentiation always comes from the inherent knowledge that you have as an enterprise and the quality of the data, right? So no conversation is complete, whether it's agentic or whether it's generative, without talking about the data governance, data policy, data quality, access to data. And even in this scenario, when we talked about agentic evaluation, a lot of that goes back to the fundamentals of how good is the quality of the data, which I can use to factor in. Okay. And then the future proofing of your AI investment, essentially, who are you partnering with? What is the choice that you're making on the platform, right? For example, from Google's perspective, you have access to Google DeepMind, state of the art foundation models, which I'll touch in a little bit. But it's really important that how are you thinking of the provider? How are you thinking of the platform? How are you thinking about the innovation, a lot of which is happening at a very rapid pace? And how do you want to future proof your investment for things yet to come? So, choosing the right partner is a crucial step. And the last part, which is really important from enterprise lens perspective, is enterprise readiness, right? How is the framework structured from accessing the data, from the hardiness that is needed to take something into production, to make sure that the data that goes into kind of training or tuning your foundation models, it stays as your data, does not make it to the output. What are the indemnification constraints? What is the data governance strategy, right? What is the SLA, right? It's like we are thinking about, for the first time, we are thinking of, okay, if you have a generative AI use case deployed into production, how many nines, right? What is the reliability? Do I have something like a provision throughput so that my workloads are guaranteed to serve my customers, just like I'm used to in my traditional SDLC, right? So we are getting into these kinds of capabilities as we are thinking of taking these applications into production. Now, I do want to share with you that when it comes to objectively thinking about it, we have all the way from 30 to 70% of Gen AI use cases which are making it into production. And as of 2025, the prediction is that at least 50% of enterprises will have at least one Gen AI use case in production deployment, right? So now, the what I'm trying to call out here is that it's a huge spectrum, all the way from 30 or 40% to 70%. And the reason that variability is so high, because it's still very hard to take Gen AI applications or the agents that we talked about into scaled production deployment, where they are reliably able to drive the experiences and the workload. And to get to that faster, enterprise readiness becomes really crucial, which also touches on the change management and governance. But most importantly, it's about, is it a hardened platform at every layer of the stack to get you to the production deployment? So just want to kind of share with all of you the perspective when I said that you want to have flexibility and choice at every layer of the stack. So when it comes to Google's Vertex AI, which is the platform for agentic AI, which is the platform for generative AI, you have choice at every layer, starting from the data to compute, where you could choose TPUs, which is our state of the art optimized inference capabilities, to GPUs. When it comes to frameworks, you can choose from TensorFlow, from PyTorch. When it comes to models, you have more than 200 different models to choose from, starting from Google's own foundation models, which is Gemini, to open source models. And when it comes to agents, again, you can choose Google's own agent builder, which we have now released to the ecosystem, or you can choose other frameworks. And we are uh, very focused on making sure that every layer of the stack, you are able to choose what is right for the use case and avoid the lock in. So, next, I want to touch a little bit on what's new with Gemini 2.0. We did release Gemini as our family of foundation models, and some of the key things are that it has advanced reasoning and it has native multimodality, right? Native multimodality is a very different paradigm, because that means as the model was being trained, it had all the different inputs from all the different modalities, and that's how the model learned, as opposed to kind of stitching these modalities later and kind of putting it that way, right? So now some of the new capabilities with 2.0 is that multimodality is not just for inputs, which could be your text, which could be your video, which could be your audio, which could be your images. It's also for output. So you also have multimodality in the output. So text to speech is new with 2.0, image generation is new with 2.0, and live video and audio input, that's new with 2.0. So what that really means is that you can have a single model which can serve for an entire spectrum of tasks and use cases. And you can use a single model underlined to actually unlock insights across structured and unstructured data, whether it is in form of images or videos or something else. And again, this is a very powerful takeaway from my perspective, because a lot of enterprise data is still unstructured. Almost, if you look at different research reports, almost 70% of enterprise data is unstructured, and it is also not utilized today from extracting the insights perspective. So 70% of the enterprise data roughly is not being put to use. And that's where you can see that with the capabilities of multimodality, addressing it for both input and output, you would be able to get that insight, especially when you have Google quality search on top of it, right? So one more important topic on 2.0, which is essentially the long context window. This is something which I truly get fascinated about every time I talk about it. So with 2.0 Pro, you have 2 million context window. And what that means is that you can open up use cases which were not absolutely not possible before. So it's not text prompting, it's actually document prompting, right? So with a 2 million context window, for example, you can upload 22 hours of audio right into the context. You can have your entire code base uploaded, because you can have more than 60,000 lines of code in the context. You can have 2 hours of video. So imagine all the different use cases that it opens up, uh, which were not possible before. The one which I like a lot is essentially uploading the video, the entire movie. Especially if it's a Bollywood movie, then it's gonna be 3 hours or 3.5 hours, and then have you can extract the frames of the key moments in that, or you can extract the frames of the lead actor so that you can generate the preview, right? So these are some of the examples of use cases which are in production, and which are also kind of pushing the limits on what you can do with long context windows. So now we are kind of, let's stitch all of this together one more time. Recap. So we had a primer on the agents. Then we kind of switched to how do I actually think about it in the context of enterprise, whether it is search, whether it is extracting data from the structured and unstructured formats, and how do I bring it all together on a platform which gives me the optionality and the choice and is powered by future proofing the innovation, where you have access to something like Google DeepMind when it comes to taking state of the art foundation models to power these agentic experiences. Uh, Here, what I want to touch on is just some thoughts, uh, which I get into a lot as I get into the conversations with decision makers, just to kind of think about this whole thing, because it can become very overwhelming very quickly. I'm pretty sure in that last 1 hour, we have released something which I need to ramp up on right after this webinar ends, right? So it's that fast, the pace of innovation, right? So you want to think about, are you innovating organically? Is it bottom up or is it strategically top down? And they can lead to different outcomes. From a governance point of view, you want to think, are you going to start from a single subset, from a single function, from a single department? Or is it that you want to kind of say, I want to equip everyone with AI and then kind of start thinking of use cases that way? One really important aspect which I touched on is evaluating the use cases. We have to define the success metric upfront, as opposed to starting from a build first alternative. The use cases which are getting into production, the agents which are getting into production, the Gen AI solutions which are getting into production are the ones where the outcome, the success, the ROI, the path to monetization, all of this is defined on day zero, along with the evaluation and the data governance. And lastly, you want to figure out to what extent you can start putting solutions together which are pre integrated experiences, or you want to go the DIY route. For example, think of RAG based Gen AI applications. You can orchestrate every single step that you need for that, starting from chunking to embedding to bringing in the document to doing the sanitization of the documents. All of that you could do one step at a time, put it all together. Or you can use the capabilities, the services which are there in Vertex AI platform today, which is built in to kind of get to 90% of those different steps for RAG based application using a single API call. So these decisions have an impact in terms of what you define as success, whether it's Gen AI use cases or agentic AI use cases. So it's very important to keep them in mind. So with that, I think I'm at the end of the session. I'm happy to take a few questions from all of you. I know I went a little bit over time, but I'm still more than happy to take a couple of questions from the audience.
Thank you, Miku. This is so exciting. I mean, as a techie, I come from the Microsoft side, Azure AI Foundry. So I love to see they have competitive innovation is really taking these technologies in an incredible level and so fast, as you were saying it. Like while we are doing this webinar, there's probably some releases from the companies and we need to start learning stuff. There are a couple of questions in here, and let me give you a quick one. First question came from Surendra, is talking about that traditional workflows have BPEL, like business process execution language, BPMN MN is business process model and notation. What is the agents is going to do for communicating agent to agent?
Yeah, I think it's really fascinating because for traditional workflows, I feel that's where we have the biggest opportunity when
Mhm.
it comes to bringing the automation. But at the same time, you have to be very careful that you're not kind of breaking the workflow, right? So it's because those workflows are already there. They are getting you the ROI and the efficiencies. One of the things we are seeing is that you want to kind of, first of all, you want to factor in which aspects in your traditional predictive workflows can be automated with least friction, right? And then just take those sub modules or sub functionalities, and then start orchestrating it together, right? One caveat I would want to share is that, you know, um, I start my presentations typically, no matter who is in the room, that not every problem is an AI problem, right? If it can be solved using an Excel sheet, solve it, right? If it can be
Yeah.
solved using a traditional predictive AI, solve it, right? So it's very important that we have that lens in mind, that what are the steps in the BPM flow which can be automated. First of all, let's try to solve that with, standard Gen AI wrappers with standard API calls. And then as you see that you can get to a certain level of automation, then start thinking about making it agentic, right? So
Yeah.
that would be
That's
just
great.
my kind of best practices, but it's
Yeah.
a much longer answer, for us to,
Sure.
and we can definitely sync offline to discuss further.
Yeah, the other one is I would like to find out from it. There's another questions coming up, but what is your approach from agentic? They're becoming so autonomous. What we call responsible AI in Microsoft, compliance, security perspective. How are we going to be make sure that this agentic AIs are compliant and secure based on the systems that we are creating?
Yeah, no, that's a very important question, which is why, in the session I emphasized so much on enterprise readiness,
Yes.
because it's very easy, whether you're thinking of agents or whether you're thinking of Gen AI applications. It's very very easy to put something in a proof of concept. I can do that in 2 hours, but when you want to take that into production, then you have to start thinking about data governance, the aspects of responsible AI, and which is what I categorize in the bucket of enterprise readiness. See, I don't think that, because we are thinking about agents, it changes anything in terms of the responsible AI facets that we have been talking about for Gen AI use cases. I think it's pretty much similar, right? What are the biases? Because all of that is still powered by your foundation model underneath, right? So those are
Mhm.
the same challenges. In fact, so like, how are you factoring in the hallucinations? How are you making sure that the biases are in check? How are you making sure that you have the right filters to kind of ensure that the toxicity does not get out in the output? How are you making sure that the input data doesn't, so all of that is still at the model level correct. But on top of that, now you have to figure out, because you are dealing with autonomous systems, you have to put even more guardrails in terms of evaluating it, right? That can you actually share the data? If the agent is taking a step, first of all, when you're starting, you want to make sure that there is a human in the loop
Yeah.
before you let the agent start taking all those key decisions on its own. So some of it would be evaluation, some of it would be the blueprint of what your responsible AI looks like for your own organization, and making sure that you're cross checking it with your agents in production deployment.
No, this is a very valid concern, and it's been raised significantly. I think there's a good question here. Is there agent certification in Google Agent Space before it become public? What are the topics of certification and validation?
I think it's probably on the way, because agent space, it's still in the preview mode, but I'm pretty sure we will, we'll get to kind of all different kinds of certifications at different levels, which we have done even with Vertex AI and something else. So I would say it's coming.
Yeah.
But Agent Space is a true SaaS application from Google, built on top of Vertex AI platform. So there are many aspects of Agent Space which is very powerful for enterprises today. So I think we would want to kind of get to certifications and improve on that expertise for our ecosystem.
And my background is databases, so I did
Yeah,
work a lot in the data modernization. And I think one of the biggest obstacles in a lot of the organizations is the data. They don't have a proper data strategy and security and compliance on it
yeah,
that they can open up to agents. But there's a question in there. I love it when in the chat people start answering each other and extensively. But Konstantin is asking, what are the biggest obstacles businesses face when scaling AI-driven automation across multiple teams and systems? Obviously, I mentioned the data. What are the top of your mind? Maybe that would be a great wrap-up question for the
yeah, yeah.
webinar.
There are, like I said, there are multiple challenges. Having your data estate in order is one of the biggest one. Uh, Making sure that the responsible AI aspects and the enterprise readiness aspects are taken care of. Those are other three key things. And I would say also the fact that do you have a good handle on the price performance trade offs? That plays a big role when you're thinking of taking these systems into production. Because think about it, you have an agent which is serving your entire workload related to your customer support. Have you done the, like, have we done the math to figure out what that trade off looks like? Because when you scale it into production, you have to start thinking about the cost, right? But
Yes.
we don't have we are still early, right? If you look at it just as a holistic landscape, we are still early. Every enterprise is early in terms of taking these applications into production. So it's not that that math has been figured out, right?
Okay.
So which becomes a blocker. And then the last aspect I would say is also the skilling of your workforce, right? All the toolings, all the orchestration, the plumbing that you have to do, is your in-house skilled to take it through the production journey. So that is not by any means the less important, because that becomes your first blocker when
Yes.
you're thinking of scale, right?
Yeah. Miku, thank you very much. And everybody in webinar, please feel free to send us more questions, but also can you put some evaluations, how you find about this webinar and the content, etc. I would like to thank again to Glarium Technologies. Thank you very much, Miku. It's very good insights about the agentic AI progress that's happening in the world so fast and being top of it. In like People were worried about that technology is becoming such a AI driven that techies will not have a job and people will be,
Yeah,
AI will be doing everything. I think it's a good indication that while we might not be writing line by line codes, but these architectures and putting it together, security, compliance, etc., there's a lot of work to be done by
yeah,
techies
and
like us.
100%, Murad. And I just want to leave everyone here with a couple of thoughts. One is that we are absolutely in most fascinating times when it comes to technology. That's number one. Number two is that, no matter what our profile is, I think the access to tools and simplicity in terms of building something and getting your hands dirty, that's so fast now that it's really amazing. And the third thing is that reach out on LinkedIn if there are burning questions. Let's stay connected, because I'm more than happy to hear what the use cases are, what the scenarios are, what the challenges are, and kind of do that ideation with everyone in this audience. That's my open kind of invitation to all of you. Reach out, let's stay connected, because we all can learn from one another. No one has it figured out, and it's the best time to be in.
Yeah, I know you have a sharp stop in 2 minutes, and thank you very much again. Please, everybody on the call, please put reviews on the chat or in the LinkedIn profiles and the Glorium Tech site. We're looking. We want to make sure that we improve these webinars based on your feedback. Thank you again, Miku, and looking forward to talking with you again.